Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Severin and thank you for watching. We are talking today about the full moon in Capricorn on the 4th of July 2020, and this is a lunar eclipse. So lunar eclipse, now we are still in an eclipse season, so this is the third eclipse that we are experiencing right now, and that makes us all being in a special state or a special situation because eclipses basically push up on us where we have to almost align with our own purpose or who we are meant to be. So you can imagine that 2 weeks ago the solar eclipse was so important in Cancer because it was sparking the whole theme, right? And now we have a culmination where the whole story now it becomes clear into our awareness. And this is not just for this full moon, but actually when we have an eclipse, it's like for the next 6 months. So you could say every eclipse kind of pushes us in a theme that we will experience and grow and learn into for the next 6 months. And now we are in Capricorn, so I just show you here. We have the moon in Capricorn and we have the sun in Cancer. So that's the full moon. And so we had 2 weeks ago an eclipse here in Cancer, a solar eclipse. I will repeat some of the things that I have said. If you haven't watched, then watch the video I have done 2 weeks ago at the solar eclipse in Cancer. But now we're having this culmination point here in Capricorn. But we have to understand basically that we are still in a phase of retrograde Mercury. So Mercury is here. Mercury is conjunct with the sun, and that's why I'm calling this full moon in Capricorn speaking your truth, or learning or trusting to speak your truth. It's still that we are in a phase, and this has started 2 weeks ago, where we could say a lot of planets have been retrograde. So we have actually had Venus retrograde, we had Mercury still now retrograde, and we had Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, they're all still in retrograde motion. And when we have so many planets retrograde, then you can imagine it's basically what we have done here at the Hermitage, at our retreat center. We have done a retreat. So we have actually been learning meditation, and we have been sitting in silence and cultivating stillness. But imagine now everybody in the world had in some sorts kind of a retreat, because when we have retrograde planets, they push you on an internalized momentum. What are we doing when we are becoming more internalized, especially when we are pushed in a Cancer solar eclipse? What is Cancer about? Cancer is about nurturing ourselves, coming in touch with our own emotions, our own feelings, our own sensations, and becoming intimate with ourselves. So when we have all this introspective, then it's like we're becoming aware, Cancer, like what is alive in us. And that can be in the most negative way, that we are like, oh, there are a lot of undigested emotions that hold us back, like memories, desires, fears, worries, like anything comes up. But at the same time, it's that place where we also have dreams, where we have visions, where we have hopes, where the same quality arises within from if we are in touch with ourselves. So basically, it's coming in touch with our heart, or that domain of where we are allowing everything that is alive in us. Not from a judgmental duality, but where we are allowing an intense emotion to simply flow through us again. And when we become aware of something, we are acknowledging that it has a reason, like it's there for a reason, like something happened in our life, or there was something there that hurt us or that made us the way we are, and that gives us the capacity to care about our all inner world, and from that place we can allow everything to flow through us again. And when we are allowing to come back to that flow, then we are, like I expressed before to you, we are realizing in the same sense when we are going inside that we are living mostly when we have an experience or an emotion or a thought that it is charged from something that we have experienced in the past. And when we're coming to that realization that everything is actually a memory, and that memory is flavoring our outlook into the world, and therefore it conditions us how we live in the future, that we are realizing we never really live in the world with a clean, kind of perspective and being available for what's happening with a fresh outlook, because it's constantly we have expectations or rejections. And that means we have to acknowledge, by allowing these feelings to flow through us, that we can digest again and come back to presence. So basically in the last 2 weeks on a world level, a lot of people have been coming back to a flow rather than to trying to get somewhere, and recognizing in their own way and that we actually can accept what's there, and that ultimately brings us back to awareness itself. And this very same place where we have the wounds, where we have the triggers, where we have the challenges, if we go into that acceptance and allowness, then in this very same place, from there comes, in our subconsciousness, comes the intuition and the creativity, which then our heart is speaking to us and sharing with us actually what is there that we would like to play out. But there can also be an insecurity or a fear of like, but this is not my day-to-day reality. How do I gonna play that out? And that's exactly what's happening right now. We had a glimpse in the last 2 weeks, we could say, which is happening still now, of what's possible if we're not living from past conditioning or ideas or emotional triggers, but if we come to a place where things can simply flow through us and we're not reacting. And out of that, with patience, comes a new place of or quality of being. And from that is an openness and an awareness of freedom, and everything is possible. It's an intense creativity. And from there, now we are with this full moon, we're experiencing that we want to bring that into reality. Capricorn is now this, bring it into manifestation, bring it into completion, and where we are closing up, and we are also realizing, okay, like I have this idea, but how can I bring that into my day-to-day life? How can I bring, being responsible for my vision and not just dreaming about it like on an internal level, but actually confronting my surrounding and bring that into a concrete form. And that's our insight now. I have it alive in me, but now it needs to come out and needs to give birth. And that's where Capricorn full moon is right now. But remember, it's still like where we are in retrograde, where it's like, but how do I do that? I'm still a bit fragile. I'm still a bit uncomfortable. Is this really true for if I'm living it, or is it just true for myself? I can feel it, but how do I bring that into actually my life? So that's where we still have this retrograde motion, and that's why I'm saying like speaking your truth is like something you have to do it in order to see if it's working. You cannot wait until you ask for like, hey, what are you feeling, or what's alive in you? And that's this challenge that's happening right now. And I have drawn for you here this square. So this is an opposition. So we have kind of the heart is alive, the feelings or the emotions or the creativity is there. And at the same time, it pushes us to bring that into our reality, into our day-to-day world. That's the Capricorn practical, like what is the next step? Like, come on, don't take things personal, don't fear rejection, don't fear failure. Like you have to start with the first little step. You don't have to know your own vision and now be already disappointed that you're not there. And that's a little bit the case right now. We would already like to see that this is completed in our lives. But remember, it's a 6-month journey. So the 6 month is actually right now, just coming into play, because now what's happening, the eclipse finishes. That means the next 6 months are almost like, okay, you have had this support, like eclipses are there to align again or to realize what we need to do. And this was an additional one with being so internalized with all the retrograde planets. But now the next 6 months is like where you have to work. So it's almost, we had a future vision, what would be possible if we are really in touch with ourselves. But now it's like the work has to happen. And Saturn just came back from Aquarius, where it was for a bit, into Capricorn again, and will be here for the next 6 months. And then also Pluto is here and Jupiter are here. They're conjunct. They're the second time conjunct now. So on the 3rd of June. So yesterday, the conjunction happened. And that's happening once more by the end of the year. And then Saturn also by the end of the year will finally come out of Capricorn for good and will move finally into Aquarius. So we're waiting kind of for this shift in December 2020 by the end of the year. But there's a lot of, like, Saturn basically means like we have to work on the alt, on Capricorn. And that means for us, we have to kind of learn to shift our attention from what's not working, but to our vision. So it's almost from the pain of what is painful in the world or what we disagree with to like, yeah, but don't get stuck in that. Like, it's not working anyway. So what do you believe in? What do you trust? What is your vision that you want to express and bring in the world? And that's your active work. It's easy to just criticize and to say what you disagree with and what's not functioning, but that doesn't gonna make a change. So it's anyway crumbling, and that's exactly Jupiter and Pluto. They are right now bringing like the dynamics of the world to a heightened state of awareness. So it's almost like the best is visible and the worst simultaneously. So you have in the world now, like, we are in a time where things are unclear, and the social interaction, or the you could say the system that we're in and so used to, which is definitely for us in the West a capitalistic system, that we are driven to consume and produce and learn and grow. So it's kind of this American dream of like, you can do it if you just work hard enough. Like, you are free if you just, you know, push yourself hard enough. And it's kind of this self-improvement, of this self-help. And that's like, what about if actually the system in itself is not healthy, and you don't have to constantly, you know, squeeze the best out of you? And actually it's much more what we just had during the eclipse, where it's like the work is not in pushing so hard, but actually in learning what is alive within you, and really trusting that and staying with that faith and with that like knowing, or that inner connection, that that's what you individually need to do. But right now it helps you to see that, because the outer system is crumbling, is falling apart, like the economical system, the political system, the racial, the financial, everything is like, it's questioned. That helps you to fall apart and look what's inside alive in you, but at the same time it's unsecure, so it's also uncomfortable, because there's nothing that you can rely and compare to on the outside. So it's the worst and the best. Jupiter the best and Pluto the worst, simultaneously at its height. And also that's a time where Jupiter increases kind of the dilemma that we're in the world, and that's the coronavirus, where the second wave has started in a lot of countries. Like, it's still there, the disbelief in authorities. So Saturn is ruling the whole thing, where it's like we're losing more and more trust in the system, in the authorities, in the establishment. And why are big companies like corporations getting safe, while the small people with their small businesses just have to pay themselves and just, you know, having no job anymore? And it's more and more people. That definitely brings up all the issues that always have been there, which were always unfair, because the system in itself is not working. Now they come to the surface, like, that's not working anymore. And the question becomes even bigger, well, then what is working? And that pushes us to the last kind of theme with this full moon in Capricorn. It squares here to Mars and Chiron. And when we have a square, it's like, okay, these two, it's the theme, but these squaring here, so that's the release point. So the release point means, yes, we have an inner connection and we want to bring that vision into reality. We feel right now we're not so clear. Mercury is still in retrograde motion. We are not knowing exactly what it is, but we would like to be already much further. We would like to see like where we could be, where our potential, our vision is. And that means we have to do something. Mars in Aries is like, is taking a risk, taking a fight, taking a battle. And that also with Chiron conjunct is making it even a more special symbology, because Chiron, you can imagine, Chiron is the wounded healer, and Chiron is like half horse, half human, and he is actually an immense teacher, but he has been wounded by an arrow, and this wound he can never heal. So imagine, like, you would like to do something, but you feel there's a part in you that feels painful. So imagine, let's say, Chiron in Aries, maybe you feel like you would like to go for an adventure, but you feel that you are not strong enough. You don't have enough financial resources, or you're too weak in that fragile world, and you will not survive. So the wound is actually that you are not trusting that you could go on an adventure, even though you have everything that it takes. and that wound will not go away. And now Mars makes you like go anyway, even if you feel wounded. And that's what Chiron is. Everybody has a wound on a personal level. Let's say if you would Chiron in Taurus, then it's maybe you feel, yeah, but I don't have enough beautiful face, or my body is not nice, you know, people will not listen to me. Like everybody has a wound where we are feeling like more in Gemini, oh, but I'm not listened to, you know, my opinion doesn't make a difference. Like I will have a lot to say, but people will not give me their attention. But that's just your wound. Like if you would ask the people, they would say, that's not true, that's your own perception. Now Mars makes you go anyway. Go anyway with that wound in the direction that you believe in and fulfill it, even if you feel it's painful for you. And that's an amazing opportunity to grow into what we need to become, because everybody has a wound and everybody has worries and everybody has a feeling of insecurity or a denial, a fear of denial, and we need sometimes a push by somebody. It's like, it's gonna be fine, even if you're not perfect, even if you're incomplete, you're gonna make it, but you have to learn to trust. If you look at the things that are falling apart, you're not gonna make it, and that's exactly the invitation of this eclipse. And that's the Capricorn full moon. Like Capricorn is like, what can Cancer learn from Capricorn? Don't take it personal. Don't give up. Just continue to do. Be practical. But then it's like sometimes you forget to actually express your feelings, you know, or to share how you are right now. So they're both important. And that's what Mars is actually a really important component for the next amounts of time, because Mars is here in Aries for the next 6 months, and that's quite unique. It's never there so long, and that's simply because next month in August Mars goes into retrograde. And when you have retrograde motion, that's like when, imagine like the Mars capacity of being direct, like speaking out your truth, going in, like using your force and your masculine aggression or your clarity. That's when it goes in retrograde. It's like, hey, slow down, be patient, don't use that. So we can use that for now, for this month in July, but then next month it's going to be very critical, because imagine like somebody who has no patience, like a President Trump, or like other personalities who cannot, listen and hold their temper. There's a lot of capacity that we will make mistakes, and that's where we will see the increase of a worldly shaking of systems and more conflicts and more battles and more injustice, more Me Too movement, more sexual injustice coming up next month. So that's going to be a very interesting time. That's going to push even more like the restrictions that we're seeing right now with the coronavirus, where so many people are like not agreeing with. And then it's like, well, I'm not having patience anymore. I'm doing my own rules. I'm not listening anymore to what my country says, to what my state says. I'm just doing my own thing, like Wild Wild West. There you go. Who has the bigger gun? Uh-oh, scary. Like, come back and sit in your house and wait until Mars retrograde comes out and then participate again. Don't try to be stronger. Like, slow down. So that's kind of the theme that we are having with this full moon in Capricorn to speak about, but already seeing a little bit forward in the future, and I will share more about what's happening, because there's a very interesting time for the end of 2020. So the next 6 months are very dynamic. There's a lot of shifts happening, and we're just going to see an increase of worries, of fears, but also exactly these capacities are pushing us to our limits, and that's where we find connection with ourselves and our own trust again, if we are willing to look at them and come deeper within ourselves. So I hope that has been helpful for you, and I wish you a happy full moon in Capricorn. If there's anything you want to share or to let me know, then use the comments below and we stay in touch. All the best. Goodbye. All right.